Welcome to the President's Diagnosis. I'm Tom Jackson, Managing Director at Moss Adams. This is a video tutorial for conducting a President's Diagnosis for Sutter Care at Home. Section 4. How do we record observations? The instructional objectives of this section are to use a diagnostic form and apply diagnostic levels and criteria to classify statements made by clinicians and staff, evidence and data, observations that we make as diagnosticians, and to record unanswered questions. It's important that we ask the scripted diagnostic questions. These fall into two categories. First of all, for each control point, there will be one or two specific questions that will be scripted in advance. Diagnosticians will ask the same questions. The second type of question, the second kind of question, really pertains to the use of the improvement kata. The improvement kata, which is well known at the Rodent Consulting Group, contains the following questions. What does management want to improve? What is the target? What's going on now on the Gemba? What's getting in the way of improvement? What do you plan to do next? When do you expect to see results? There are two additional questions that should be put in this particular context. What resources do you need? What could your managers do to help for you? Could do to help you? And what suggestions do you have for management? In raising these questions, it's important to keep in mind the transformation ruler. The transformation ruler is a document which maps 10 control points against 5 levels of development and describes for each intersection of control point and level a certain symptomology, things that we can look for as evidence that the organization is at a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, 4, or 5. We're going to use the ruler to help us classify statements, information, observations, and questions. The criteria, that is the description of the levels, will be defining, not the symptomologies. The symptomologies are there principally as a guide to your classification of the statements, information, observation, or questions. So the symptoms described must be read together with the criteria for each level. Keep in mind, the criteria are based upon the extent to which reliable PDCA methods have been deployed, institutionalized, and refined. The diagnostic form will be used to collect and record our observations. Paying attention to the diagnostic symptomologies for the control point under investigation, use the diagnostic form to record as evidence the staff statements, the data, the observations, the questions. Record the statement, the observation or question, or perhaps the data in the column of the level of health that it tends to corroborate. For example, here we have a diagnostic form filled out for any control point, and you can see in this case, we've used yellow Post-its to imagine how we might use the form to record our observations. You may not need Post-its. You could write directly on the form. You could staple evidence to the form itself in support of your classification. But here we see that there's a pattern that begins to emerge where we see an observation at level 1, we have a statement, maybe we have some corroborating data that correspond to level 2, a question or maybe an improvement idea that corresponds to level 3, and maybe we see something out there that's worth thinking about that may corroborate a level 4. We'll come back in the next section and talk about how we evaluate this information. Right now we're just talking about how to use the diagnostic form to record our observations.